Hi, and welcome to Studio 411. I'm your host, Larry Dasilva. Thanks for joining us. Well, if you are familiar with the Isley Brothers, then you know our next guest, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inductee Chris Jasper, an integral member of the Isley Brothers during the 70s and 1980s, which were their gold and platinum years, from 3+3 to the Between the Sheets LP. Those were the years when the Isley Brothers were at their creative peak, thanks to this gentleman, singer, songwriter, producer, arranger. I'm sure I left something out, but we'll discuss it with Chris. Chris's new CD is called Share With Me, and joining us here on Studio 411, returning guest, Chris Jasper. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing great.
Good.
Great. Thanks for having me back.
As soon as he could make it through the traffic, but and he thought New York traffic was bad. But anyway, so tell me now, this new CD, by the way, on Gold City Records. I got to tell you, your previous one when you were here the last time, called The One. You know, I still have it. You know, whenever I need a little pick me up, I put it on, and then I said, man, this is going to be a tough act to follow. But you know what? This sneaks up on you. Has anybody told you that? It sneaks up on you that you think it can't be as good as the previous one, and yet it is.
Yeah, I've got a lot of comments that, I think one person said, well, the first one called The One was the Super Bowl, and then they said this one is the World Series. So I was happy to hear that. But yeah, it's tough to follow an album like The One because it had so much energy in it, and songs like Man Up and even the title track. But this one, I just think it has its own character, and there's a lot of consistencies, even instrumentally, in this album that it flows very well. From one
well, you and I talked when you were on with us a year or so ago. Again, that like yourself, kind of old school. I feel in terms of even the way I analyze, an LP or a CD. And again, usually a producer, in this case you're also the producer, in the old days would have a flow chart kind of in their head or on paper, whatever. And I noticed the same thing here. And again, it's just, you start out, and we're going to go through, the different cuts discussing them. But, you start out with kind of a slow, kind of almost gospel-tinged ballad, whatever, and then you move into a couple of other tunes. And then about by the time you get to track 5 and 6, I can feel the R&B and the funk start to escalate. And then you end it with, on the other one, you ended with a song just to show you that I do listen, called Peaceful Again, which to me, oh my goodness, you get a choir singing that record. That's just fabulous. And then later on, we're going to hear a track from Chris's CD called America, which, is kind of your like patriotic song in this whole collection.
A lot of patriots in my family, and so I thought it would be good to do that song.
No, excellent. So going again back to what you were starting to say before. So that prior CD comes out, does tremendous, a big success in Europe as well as here in the States. Then what's the thought process? Take us back to a year and a half ago, when you might have already been working on it when you were last here.
Well, that's what happens. Like when I do an album, a lot of times I'll have songs or ideas that maybe not be completed, but things that I want to work on. And that's what happened with The One. When I finished, I had some ideas that I wanted to work on, and I just started to work on the original music first. And I think Spend Your Life With Me was one of the first ones I worked on, and That's What Love Can Do, the original things. But then Margie, my wife, she said, you know what, you've done some covers of, some classic songs, with the Isley Brothers. Things like Hello, It's Me, Don't Let Me Be Lonely Tonight, Summer Breeze.
Yeah.
She said, why don't you try to do an arrangement of You Are So Beautiful, because she liked that song.
Right.
I said, well, it's a popular song, and I said, let me work on it. Let me see what I can come up with. And the more I worked with it, the better I started to feel that it was going to be a really strong song on the album. And that's the only one, and that one and How Great Thou Art. Those are the two that are covers on this album.
And that, to go back to, well, How Great Thou Art, again, I know someone mentioned to me they thought it was public domain, but no, it was written by a gentleman. It is public domain.
It is public domain now.
Okay.
It was written back in the 1800s.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure. I didn't get a chance to look it up.
It's a very famous hymn. You know.
Oh, sure.
A lot of churches have it in their hymnals.
Yeah.
And it happened to be one of my mother's favorite hymns. And my wife liked that one too.
Sure.
And she suggested, well, why don't you work with that?
And I don't know if you remember, but I want to say around '65, Elvis actually
Yes.
released a very successful version of that.
Yes, I remember Elvis's
Yeah,
version.
yeah.
Very well, yeah.
But like I said, this is again, just you take it to another level, and then of course, You Are So Beautiful. Again, you reminded me who the other gentleman was, and I'm blanking
So
right
Joe
now.
Cocker.
No, but for Joe Cocker, but the writer
the
was
writer,
Billy
Billy
Preston,
Preston.
and
Yeah,
then
Billy
another
Preston.
gentleman.
Yeah.
And of course, I had forgotten that Billy, may he rest in peace. I loved Billy Preston. Had co-written a song, and I'm thinking that's great. Before I forget, two things probably have nothing to do with this conversation, but I have to say it. On the way in today to the studio, I hear Curtis Mayfield's Superfly. Hadn't heard that in years. Made me think of you because around that time was when the Isley Brothers really started to ramp it up with you and your two cousins joining the band, already in the band.
Yeah, that's right.
Did you ever work or meet Curtis?
Yeah, we did some shows with Curtis.
Okay.
Actually, in Connecticut too.
No
I think
kidding.
it was an outdoor date in Hartford.
Oh, Cole Park, I bet.
I
you it
remember,
was,
and we played some dates with Curtis. We never did any recording with him.
Yeah.
And in the early '70s, he was on the same label with the older Isley Brothers, Buddha Records.
Oh, Buddha. Okay, yeah.
Neil Bogart. That was
Yeah.
Neil Bogart's label. So he's been close, but we never worked with him like in the studio. You know what I mean? But he was one of my favorite artists too. The songs, some of the songs that he wrote.
Yeah, of course, you grew up listening to him when he
Yeah.
was with the Imperial, not the Imperials,
Impressions.
the Impressions. I beg your
Yeah,
pardon.
I'm So Proud.
Fred
and,
Cash and the
it's
Impressions.
Great,
yeah.
just great songs. Yeah.
It's All Right. I mean,
Yeah.
countless others. Very, very underrated. And there was another one I heard, and I can't think of it, but I must say we were talking off air about having gone to the St. George Theater recently in Staten Island. Saw Gary U.S. Bonds, who. This Little Girl of Mine was the hit that Gary had.
Okay, yeah.
That's the one. We were talking off air, and Chris's wife was trying to look it up, a Bruce Springsteen song. But anyway, while we were on that trip, after seeing Gary and Darlene Love, I'm driving on the Jersey Turnpike, and it must have been Kismet, because of course you guys spent a lot of time in Jersey. What do I hear? I hear one of your big hits, "Fight the Power."
Yes.
So I'm
Fight the
thinking,
Power.
okay, and I saw dollar signs light up right.
Yeah, that album was that was the only #1 pop album we had.
Yeah.
And it was called The Heat Is On. That was
Yeah.
the name of that album. And it has 6 songs on it.
Yes. Yeah.
3 fast songs and 3 slow songs.
And Fight the Power, wasn't that on the 45 Children, if you don't know what a 45 is, it was part 1 and part 2.
Part 2, yeah.
But then the version that the radio stations, wasn't that also edited?
Yeah, that was an edited version.
It was an edited because
for
of either
radio.
length or something.
Yeah, it was
something
length, and
about-
then of course they had the bleep out, one
Yes,
of the words, the BS word.
Yes, yeah,
They had
there
to
you
edit
go.
that out. But that was an edited version that the radio played. Yeah.
No, so I heard that, and then of course I was telling somebody you were going to be on the show, and right away I had this vision from a couple of months ago before you and I spoke again. Again, more royalties coming in. I see a Swiffer commercial with "Who's That Lady?"
Yes, that lady.
So tell me, how does that work? What's the process for a big company like, let's say, General Foods or whoever owns Swiffer? How do they go about getting in touch with the songwriters to get permission to use that track?
Well, most times they will contact the administrator of the publisher.
Okay.
Whoever administrates the catalog. And in this case, it would be Sony ATV.
Okay.
They would contact them and, get the proper license, and pay the sync fee,
Yeah.
But usually it's the administrator that they contact.
And plus, they say, okay, make sure you get the address right. Chris Jasper.
Yeah, get all that correct. Yeah.
Oh my goodness, Chris Jasper joining here for the hour on Studio 411. The new CD, Share With Me. ChrisJasper.com is the website for more information. Getting back to the CD, music or lyrics? It sounds like you do the kind of noodle with musical structure, chords, maybe that kind of pique your curiosity. What do you do? Write it down? Use a computer to keep track of these little snippets, or do you do like other artists that walk around with little notes, notepads in their pocket all the time?
Well, what I'll do is I'll start from the chord progressions first, music. Usually I'm practicing, and I'll run across a chord progression I like. A lot of times I will just practice it enough to commit it to memory, or I still have this tape recorder that I recorded Caravan of Love on a long time ago.
Reel to reel?
It's a cassette player.
Cassette. Oh,
and it's
it's
very convenient. I can just pull it out, hit the button, boom, and just put it down so I won't forget it.
Sure.
And then I'll start, doing the tracking, putting the parts down, the bass part, the percussion parts, and I'll just build the track, step by step.
Now, what happens if you're at an event or just out in the country and you get an idea? What do you do then?
Oh, well, then the phone. The phones have a recording device on it. Matter of fact, we were on an anniversary one time,
Yeah.
and Margie bought me a guitar, and I was tuning it up in the hotel, and fooling around with the guitar, I came across a nice chord progression. It was on the last album, a song on the last album, the one called Kiss Me.
Okay, yeah.
And I came across that chord progression, and I said, okay, Marge, where's the phone? I don't want to forget this. And, she hit the audio thing, the audio record on the phone, and I put it on there. So technology,
Oh, sure.
has,
I mean, I know in the 80s, folks it was kind of like a cassette recorder, but micro cassette,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
people would do that now. And again, I've just upgraded to where I've actually upgraded to the 21st century. So now I actually have a phone that I can do that kind of stuff with. Before it was like, okay, call somebody and talk into their answering machine. You could do that too,
Yeah, sure.
in a pinch. But no, so the music then is the first thing, and then the lyrics. Like today, you were stuck in traffic. Just don't use that lyric,
Yeah,
stuck in the middle with you, because it's already been done.
I can use those lyrics. No, but really, sometimes lyrics will come at the same time. Sometimes they won't. Usually the music and the melody will come first, and then I'll add in the lyrics as I go. Verse, chorus, a bridge.
We've got a shot, if the guys in the studio can get it, of Chris, and I assume one of your home studios there, kind of limbering up, and you look a little like Johnny Mathis there. Johnny rehearses for like 3 or 4 hours a day.
Great voice.
That's why at
Great
80,
voice,
80 something, he's still out
He
there.
still has a great voice.
Yeah.
He can still sing.
Absolutely. Another story too, going back to that beautiful theater I was telling you, the St. George's, not hotel, St. George's Theater. I'm walking out after seeing this great show with Gary and Darlene Love and a couple of other people that we know, and all of a sudden, what do I see? I see, I don't even know what the term is. I know octogenarian is people in their 80s. Jerry Lewis appearing like about a month after we were going to be there, and Tony Bennett. And I'm thinking like,
Wow.
man, I'm thinking, you're like a kid compared to these guys.
Oh yeah, Tony Bennett. He's and he still sings.
Yes,
he still sings
absolutely,
very
yeah.
well. He's amazing. Tony Bennett's amazing.
Oh yeah, no. So now the lyrics then, and again, give me some ideas from this CD. Any of the song, the lyrics kind of hit you at a particular time, or you sit there like at 5 o'clock in the morning saying, okay, I'm gonna, like a writer does, a book writer,
Yeah, I will do that. I'll be up late at night sometimes. Sometimes I'll dream a song, and like Share With Me. That song came to me in a dream. Wow. And I got up, played on the piano so I wouldn't forget it. Recorded a little bit of it, and sometimes when I do that, when I get up and I play it, and I'll say, well, no, it wasn't as good as I thought it was, you know. Only in my dream it was good. But then some things are good, you know.
Now, since Jasper Isley went their separate ways, what, around 88?
Yeah, it was 88, yeah.
This is now your, 14th solo CD?
14th.
Any stories about any song, or even from the last couple of CDs, where, you know, unusual method that you kind of, a song came about? Anything, you know, that rings a bell? I mean, I know you did some gospel CDs, so, you know, those probably weren't so, you know.
The one gospel CD, Faithful and True, it was so unusual that every day for a couple of weeks, I had a complete song. And that never happened to me, you know. And I would call my brother, who's a minister in Cincinnati, and I said, Steve, I don't believe this. Listen to this. And I would play it for him. I said, the song is a complete song. And you know, I just thought of it today.
Wow.
You know what I mean? That was the most unusual experience doing an album I've ever had.
So basically 2 weeks to write the songs, and probably another month to put it out.
It was like
it was the quickest release in your career.
It was amazing, you know, how quickly and complete the ideas were coming to me. And I was saying, you know, it's definitely inspired, because I've never done that before, ever.
Now, any dry spells, or what, you know, people would call like writer's block? You ever have like a short period of time where you're just like, wow, you know, I'm just kind of, you know, grasping at ideas? Yeah.
Yeah, well, there was a period when I was working, say, with some other groups I had signed, and I wasn't, you know, doing too much of my own personal recording. So, and I was more concentrated on getting their record done. You know, there was a period where I wasn't doing a lot of writing for myself. But then, you know, once I completed those projects, I got back into the studio and started to work on my material. So sometimes, you know, other projects can take you away from, you know, what you're doing, you know, what you want to do with your career.
Now, when you were on last time, I know we talked about, you know, influences, and usually when I say that to, again, a book author or a musician, it's usually, you know, musical or, you know, fellow authors. We'll take it a step further. Influences from, let's say, the 50s on upward, maybe even today, you're motivated by somebody, songwriters.
Yeah.
I mean, the one you were saying something like a Smokey Robinson, because of course he not only was writing for himself and the Miracles, but I mean, he was like a guy wearing 7 hats.
Yeah, he was writing for a lot of people. Temptations, you know, a lot of the big songs. Yeah. Smokey Robinson wrote them. He was one of the people I was influenced by. Stevie Wonder, and you know, of course, Marvin Gaye. Sam Cooke.
Any songwriters that were, let's say, not necessarily musicians, but people that you said, wow, this, you know, this person keeps coming up, the name keeps coming up, you know?
Yeah, we covered some popular musicians, you know, James Taylor, you know, Carole King, you know, Crosby, Still, Nash and Young. Yeah. You know, we did
pretty much it was the songwriter was usually the performer.
Yeah, a lot of times that happened
back in the
because
day
of the
was,
70s.
You know, songwriters
that was very common.
Oh, sure, that was
that groups would write their own material, and you know, they would be the performance. You know, so but those things, I think that was a good thing. You know, that, you know, groups could write their songs and kind of control their destiny as far as their musical direction was concerned. I'd like to see more of that. I would like to see
for them financially.
And financially, it's better for
sure.
The more you do, the better it is for you financially. And songs, you know, have sometimes a second or third life.
Oh,
you know,
absolutely.
When they're covered. So I would like to see more of that.
Now, what is, if any come to mind, during those 14, this being the 14 solo album, or even back with some of the other groups, a song that wound up being, I know, didn't you do something with Shaka Khan too? Yeah. But a song that, in other words, became like a big hit that you wrote, but maybe didn't necessarily perform on a disc yourself.
Yeah, that was called Make It Last. It was on an album of hers called the CK album.
Okay.
And I did that song, and I played the instrumentation, but it was good because I was able to sing with her on the background part. which was it was a good experience because I always liked their group too, Rufus and Shaka Khan.
Oh,
I
sure,
liked their material.
Tell me
even
something
when they
good
did Stop
and,
On By and a lot of stuff that they did, but it was just a good experience to record with an artist of that caliber, that kind of voice and that kind of talent.
Chris Jasper joining us here for the hour on Studio 411, the new CD, Share With Me, on Gold City Records. Running theme to me, again, I could be way off base, but again, a lot of the influence seems to be, again, comes from your lovely lady, and not just her suggesting maybe the classic song that you might want to tackle, but just the theme, is that religion or your faith, and as well as kind of just a upbeat, positive attitude, a lot of love and just good thoughts in your songs.
Yeah,
as well as also kind of keeping an eye open on social issues as well.
Yeah, sure. And that's kind of where my lyrics come from now. Is a wonderful relationship that I have with my wife. For many years. We've been married for 33 years, and also like you were saying, my connection and my relationship with God. That's usually always in one of my at least one or two songs on my albums. And what's going on in the world. Yeah. I think it's important to give maybe some solutions or say something positive in that regard.
The one song that caught my attention, I'm sure probably another one or two besides America, but was the song Why, ? That again is, and I'm blanking right now, it reminded me of the one that stood out on the one. There was one there that, well, you did the cover of What's Going On. But
yeah.
There was another one that you wrote, for that album that also kind of peaceful again, that kind of thing, where it's kind of, hey, it's wake up everybody, kind of that old Harold Melvin, the Blue Notes, folks, let's, pay attention to what is in front of us now.
Right, and it's, a lot of things that, on the news, that are shown on the news, the regular person is a lot of times forgotten. The person who's just, from day to day trying to, be a good parent or whatever, or, just trying to work hard for a living. Those people are forgotten, and that's what that song is saying. Why? Yeah. Why don't they notice me? Yeah. All this other stuff is going on, the things that, appear on the news. But I'm here too. Yeah. And that's what that song is saying.
As the years have gone by, and again, pretty much, let's see, do a quick math. 28 years that you've been doing solo material. So pretty much every year and a half to 2 years. Although you said you went through a period where you so really, if you took that period out, it's probably closer to every year and a half to 2 years. You've got a new release out. Do you find that your songwriting has stayed the same, or do you find that it's reached a higher creative level, or do you look back at old songs and say, wow, maybe I had done it differently now, or does it kind of even flow throughout the career?
Well, I think it depends on the idea, because sometimes you can write a song like Caravan of Love that you really can't, compare anything to, because it's an entity all of its own. Like that song has gone worldwide, popular, as far as popularity is concerned. Everybody's singing it, but
you might want to re-release it.
Yeah, I mean, and I did on the Chris Jasper Essential.
Okay,
that's one of the songs on there. On the Essential Chris Jasper.
I'm saying do a new
a new version.
Vocal,
a new version.
Make a note of that.
Yeah, but I try to maintain a certain quality. I want it to be music that people can put on and say, hey, that's good. It's positive. It's uplifting in a way. You know what I mean? Because we have so much negative things going on in the world, and it's always front and center. Negative is front and center. Yeah. Somebody got murdered, or some horrible thing happened, and it gets front page every time. So I want to inject positivity. For the listener. So.
We'll narrow it down to the 21st century new artists. So the last, decade and a half, almost 2 decades of performers that you say, wow, the people that you think either impress you, inspire you, or that you say, wow, they really got a good thing going on? I mean, from any genre, any couple of names of people that.
Oh, I don't know. I'm a composer,
Yeah.
And I always hear music from that standpoint. Some people they'll pick a favorite artist. I can just remember. I guess the closest thing to that would be the Motown sound.
Okay.
Philly International. That there was such a consistency in the quality of music and the quality of songs. That's what I was inspired by. Is like people who keep creating new music on a consistent basis. Sure. Stevie Wonder is another one. He was very, very consistent as far as creativity was concerned. And that's what kind of attracts me is, because I know what it is to go into a studio, have nothing on the tape or however you're recording, and then produce something, and have it come out. So that's kind of what I'm impressed by.
We've got a shot here. If Mike can get an image of that, I think that's in the the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Yes, that's the Moog Liberation. I donated that to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. That's one of the keyboards I used to use quite a bit.
You think if you went up there and you said, look, let me slip in there and just move the mannequin over and I can stand there for an hour and play that thing, you think anyone would notice?
Well, one of my uniforms is standing there. I donated that too. You can see the feet of it.
Yes, the boots, yeah.
But the whole uniform is there too. So maybe I can trick people and make them think it's me.
Yeah, it can be like one of those commercials, for an insurance agency. Yeah, look there. Oh, it looks like the real thing. Yeah.
Yeah,
those are
I actually
great.
took my family there. We went by there and we saw it. We saw the exhibit. It's pretty nice. The building is very, very nice. It's like futuristic.
That's the
glass.
one in Cleveland.
The one in Cleveland. Yeah. It's a very, very attractive building to go to. I'd recommend it to anyone to go there.
There you go.
It's very, very nice.
And so that was for you, and then of course your lovely wife, and then your kids are like looking at that probably like, yeah, right.
Yeah, it was great. I mean, it was a great experience to see that.
And now the as far as Gold City Records and the CDs you're putting out these last several years, of course now it's become a family affair.
Yes.
Margie's handling the legal stuff. Your son. There's a shot we had earlier. We'll show it again where he's learning from the master, and your other kids all involved in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah. My son Nick, he does the art designs, the covers, all of the graphic designs for the projects. Margie and Michael are singing background with me on some records. As a matter of fact, on America.
Yes, I know. Very good.
They're on the background. They sing with me. Mike does the rhythm tracks, a lot of the percussion things that you hear on the songs. So, they're all involved. We're all involved with each other.
That's good. That's good. I wanted to get this in also, chrisjasper.com for more information. In 2016, you were honored the National R&B Music Society, honoring classic soul and R&B legends. Presented you with a Lifetime Achievement Award. Others in that class, Valerie Simpson, of course, Ashford and Simpson fame, prolific songwriters in their own right, as well as I had a chance to see them back in, I want to say 2007, 2008 at Mohegan Sun. Nick was obviously still with us, was tremendous. Keith Sweat, who I've had the privilege to see. Leon Silvers III, I assume from the Silvers clan. And Betty Lavette, who, of course, has got her recognition these last few years. And there were a few others, too, that in the class. So tell me about that. That must have been quite a thrill for you to get honored.
It was great because, again, I got to bring everybody, the family. And it was just a great evening where, a Caravan of Love was, of course, central. They sang that, some other artists were up on stage and they did that as a tribute, and that was great. And toward the end of it, I came up and joined them.
There you go.
But it was a very, very nice evening, and I really appreciated the fact that they honored me, personally, for that particular award.
Now, in 2014, we talked about when you were here last time, you and the Isley Brothers group were given the Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award.
Yeah.
I just saw the one recently where they had several acts get up and perform. Was that something that was done the year you were there as well?
Well, the year I was there, no, they didn't do
Yeah,
that.
now they're doing it kind of like, for like
Yeah,
a
that must be something
PBS
new
type
they're
show.
doing,
Yeah, or
yeah.
they're getting people, or in some cases, if the person perhaps is not in a position to do that, they get someone to interpret their
Matter of fact, we
music.
got some questions about that. Some people, while we were there, say, "Hey, why didn't you guys,
Sure.
why didn't have you guys perform?" But that wasn't part of the
Oh, wow.
the program.
Well, since you bring it up now, has there been any thought? I know a couple of the members have passed, but I'm saying any thought to doing a reunion album, at least for I had Dennis Dunaway on, a fellow Rock and Roll Hall of Famer, and right a week after he was on the show, all of a sudden he announces to me, "Oh yeah, the band's getting back together."
Yeah, because of all of my involvement with my own label, and I'm also working on a film with my son right now. He wrote a script, and we're working on the score, the musical score. So I'm kind of doing a lot of projects. I haven't heard anything to that effect.
Sure.
That they even wanted to do anything like that. But I don't know when I could fit it in right now. Even if it arose right tomorrow, I don't know if I could fit it in. So and they're doing something different musically too. Ronald's been doing something different for a lot of years, and I'm kind of on my direction. So
I heard him recently on something. I don't know if it was a duet. Not I know years ago he had a duet hit with Rod Stewart where they did a remake
did This Old Heart of Mine
This Old
again,
Heart of Mine, whatever, which was of course just came out of the blue back, and they were signed to Motown for a couple of albums, and I think it had that Motown sound because they had all the musicians and staffers that would come out and play on their records. But it was great. But no, I can't remember what I did hear him or I saw him on some TV show. And again, he still sounds great.
There's Ernie and Marvin. They're touring. Ernie and Ronald are touring together.
Oh, okay.
But I'm doing my own stuff. I'm doing my own music right now. So.
Getting back to the CD, Share With Me, now track 8, of course, Funky Thing, it starts that ascent, as I was saying to you earlier, starting to get towards, we're starting to ramp it up a little bit. And, there was kind of like the one you mentioned earlier. It was a 2 or 3 that you had on.
Man Up. Yeah.
Man Up, yeah, great.
Yeah,
great
power funk song.
So, again, tell me about Funky Thing. How did that kind of, evolve?
It was... I was thinking about what to add to the album, because it was one of the last things I recorded, and I said, well, I don't have a really hard funk track yet, and so I just built it from rhythm. Right. I started from the rhythm, and just to make it a fun kind of dance song, and that's just it turned out pretty good. I mean, right now that's one of the things they're playing in England a lot. Funky Thing and the one I Love You. I Love You, they love that one.
I saw, in Europe it's getting a lot of
they love
play.
that song, yeah.
And of course I saw that and I'm listening to the lyric and right away I think of your lovely wife. I'm like, hey, this is like, he's like looking across the room at her. He's probably writing a song right now.
I told Marty, I said, this is the one that a guy could just, if he really cares about a woman, just put that one on and just let it talk for you,
There you go.
Because the lyrics are, really, really good,
Now I know, again, what's great about you in so many ways, I always see you're doing podcasts and radio shows. Of course, that comes with the territory of plugging, a project, whatever. But again, you just generally seem to always have a good time doing these things.
Oh yeah, this is what I appreciate so much. What people in radio and television has done for me. So, when they call me for an interview, I'm more than happy to do it because, that's what it's all about,
You mentioned earlier, and I had it here in my notes, but you beat me to the punch, the Gold City Records screenplay called Lost in Time. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, that's a script that my son wrote, and I think it's very, very good. But we're also doing the music for it. And I think the music is just spectacular. It's like bringing me back to my days of recording classical music and orchestration and all those kind of things that go with a score.
Sure.
You know, so
So now, would that be, since, because we had a conversation, just for the record, as Chris left us a little over a year ago, and I looked at him and I said, why don't you do a classical album? So his wife looked at me like, okay. So then I thought, okay, so is this is kind of like helping to fulfill that?
yeah, it's got a lot of those ingredients in the score. You know, it's sort of like, you know, if you've seen the big, you know, like the big movies, you know, the Raiders of the Lost Ark, or you've seen Jurassic Park, you know, those huge themes, you know. That's kind of how the music is for this script. And it's going to take probably a major studio to do it, because, you know, it's like a sci-fi adventure, you know, which it requires a lot of things, you know, a bigger budget.
We've got a shot just to show the audience there of the mission control there at the Jasper Gold City Records Studios. That's your oldest son, correct?
He's the youngest son.
Oh, the youngest son.
Michael's the
Michael.
youngest.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you guys
he's
getting
working on
ready
an
for
album of his
liftoff there, and, you know, analyzing what's going on with the track, whatever. I mean, go back to the you know, the Isley Brother days. Obviously, even Isley, Jasper, Isley. I mean, obviously, I know the technology, it was there, but I mean, really, what in terms of improvements are there versus 30, 40 years ago?
Well, 30, 40 years ago, you had to work with tape machines, which, you know, that was involved a lot of things. You know, before you even started recording, you had to line all the tracks, you know, do your tones, check your tones, and all that sort of. So, and at some point, you know, you had to also get all the sounds for the instruments. Like a long time ago, all the musicians would be in the studio together and play together. So you had to set up partitions. You know, the setup was huge. So, but now technology has allowed a person like me, who can play different instruments, you know, to go in and do a record by myself. I can do that, and I've done, you know, I've done these 14 albums by myself, and it's because, you know, of the technology, the use of computers, you know, synthesizers, you know, automation, you know, when it comes to mixing.
I mean, do you ever like wish, like, and not necessarily on a particular track, I'm not going to, you know, hold you to that, but that you kind of look back and say, you know, I like the way it came out, but boy, you know, I wonder how we could have done it old school way, you know, and then actually have, you know, some violins there or a harp, like for instance, the beginning of America. Correct me, it's an electronic harp sound synthesized, I assume. But, you know, and then I'm thinking, wow, it's just, you know, that's your Juilliard training when I hear that.
Yeah, that's, you know, and I always tell people, I said, you know, because a lot of musicians, like old school musicians, they don't like the fact sometimes that you use the synthesizer to create a, you know, a sound. But it's how you play it. It's how you apply it. You know, I apply it as though it is a real harp and do things that a real harp can do. I think a lot of times people will not understand that, and it won't sound right. They'll do something that music, that instrument is incapable of doing, and when they do it, it won't sound right on the record. It'll sound like, well, they just, you know, use the sound. And but if you use it in the way that instrument typically plays, then you'll get something very, very close to the original.
I was talking to a guest recently, you know, also in the music business, and again, this is from a live performance way, and of course, you know, people want to be able to earn a living doing, you know, any profession, certainly in the entertainment music field, and of course, you know, they were, and totally respect that, you know, a stickler for, you know, live orchestras, this and that, but of course, with modern technology, with costs and, you know, trying to, you know, squeeze every person into a venue, what do? Now it's much easier to, you know, eliminate the union band and the union orchestra, or use certain tracks maybe that were done on a scale basis, I don't presume to know, and then just, you know, there you go. And it's canned, it'll sound the same every time, it'll always play well. I hope the you know, the equipment doesn't malfunction. Otherwise they're going to be humming the tunes.
That's right. Yeah, you don't want to malfunction.
Exactly. If we can pull up that shot there, I wanted to ask Chris. That's one of your former bandmates, correct?
That's Ernie Isley. That was at the Grammys.
Yeah.
You know,
2014, yeah, the Lifetime
right.
Achievement. Yeah, no, that's great. That's great. So now, what's he up to? He's touring with Ronald.
Yeah, he's the one that tours with Ronald.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Okay.
he tours with Ronald.
So no, that's good. But yeah, I want to hear about a month from now. Hey, by the way, you know, we getting the band together. I'm putting a halt on the other CD for a couple of months. By the way, I wanted to mention in 2000. Well, you'll correct me. I want to say it was 2015 or 16. Chris received the German Record Critics Lifetime Achievement Award. Quite a nice honor. I assume you had to go.
That was big. I didn't have to go there, but that was big because that was for the whole country, for all the music that was released. You know, I got the German Critic Award for music.
Sure.
You know, which was that blew me away because, you know, all the music that is produced, you know, they picked that album, the one. And I was so honored by, you know, that award because they're real critics.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. They really look for quality. So I was very honored by that award.
And if we didn't talk about it, I know I've talked about it with a lot of other musicians such as yourself. You know, the European market. I mean, you said it earlier. They're very appreciative. Going back to the days of, you know, all the way back to Bill Haley and some of the, you know, forefathers of modern rock and R&B, that, you know, once you're good, believe me, some people here couldn't get a gig. They go over there and it's like they're revered. I mean, it's you know, it doesn't even matter if they put anything out new. It's just you know, it's like you know, just the you know. An angel has come to visit. You know,
they're like historians.
Yes,
you know?
exactly.
They know, you know, the whole catalog. I mean, sometimes when I do interviews with people from, say, like England, for example, they know everything I've ever done.
Yeah.
You know, they know what I played on the record. You know what I mean? It's like things that I forgot
I was gonna
about.
say, yeah,
you know, they'll bring it up. They say, "What? You remember this song that you did on this album?"
And you're like, "Well, if you say so."
Oh, yeah, okay, now I remember. You know, it's like, you know, they know everything.
Just nod your head. Yes, agree with it.
It's amazing.
A phrase that came up in my research, reinvention, a staple term during the long career of the Isley Brothers. Do you feel that word applies to you as well during your solo career?
I think what that really means is that when you do something exceptional again, you know what I mean? Because I think, and I know from the people on Facebook that contact me and they tell me how they like the music, they think a lot of that music's exceptional, you know? And so I think the word reinvention means you do something exceptional again.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I really do feel I have done that, especially with the last two projects. And the other ones were exceptional in other ways, but I think these two projects, you know, as far as energy is concerned, as far as the type of songs that are on them, you can connect them a little bit with the past, you know, with Caravan of Love and things like that.
Now, why? I can't wait for the third. The third time will be the charm. But it's like, why these two CDs as opposed to, not that the prior catalog was inferior or whatever. Obviously, I understand there was a point where you were maybe doing other producing things, so maybe took you more away from it. But in other words, would you call it a resurgence or just more of an ability to focus and really put out what you feel, it sounds like, are two exceptional CDs from your career?
Well, I think my focus on what I played and the way I really sing, you know what I mean? I concentrated on those two things on these two albums. Because I think a lot of people don't realize how much I played on the Isley Brothers records.
Right.
You know, I played bass on some of those songs. I played guitar on some of the songs. You know, I sang on some of them with Ronald. You know what I mean? And I wanted to show with these two albums how much I actually did.
Sure.
You know, and put it on the record. And that's why I say you can connect it with the past a little bit because, you know, people heard these albums and the one when it came out, and they say, "Hey, you know, that sounds like the Isley Brothers sound," you know, and I said, "Okay, yeah, because I'm showing you everything
I was
I've been
one
doing
of the
with
group
Isley
there,
Brothers,
yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's why I just picked these two albums because I purposely put all those ingredients that I put in the other albums before.
Sure. And again, some critics or some people will say, well, it sounds like he or she, whatever, is rehashing the sound. Hey, a person is only human in a sense, but on the positive is that there's nothing wrong with, kind of sometimes, I don't even know if drawing from the past is a good phrase, but in other words, that's your sound,
Right.
Sinatra sang Sinatra, what, technology improved. I'd like to hope his voice stayed the same, but in other words, it was always the same type of music, and
Well,
that's
what
good,
I got
with a twist.
What I got a little uncomfortable with everybody saying this is the Isley Brothers sound. That's what I got uncomfortable with, because a song like Between the Sheets, I'm playing all the music on
Right.
there. There's nobody else playing music on that song. That's Chris Jasper. You know what I mean? And when you hear the Isley Brothers music, you're hearing an awful lot of Chris Jasper.
Sure.
Yeah, Ernie's playing solos and stuff on there, but the music is me, and that's what I wanted to show on these two albums. That's what I mean. Like, that's why you can connect the two, because that's me again.
Sure.
You know what I mean? I'm showing me again. Yeah. All of what I've done. Bass,
You were like the
stuff.
Isleys' George Martin. I got to tell you. You know what I'm saying? The only difference was you were front and center, or with the band. I mean, usually we were either stage left or stage right, whatever. Mm-hmm. And Ronald was doing his thing, and the two other original brothers were there, and then you guys filled out the unit, as you guys they always refer to it as a unit, and that's fine. That's a good word. Mm-hmm. Filled it out. I mean, we had a shot earlier of you guys where everybody up on stage. I mean, that had to be some tremendous shows. So real quick, in the time we have left, Studio 411 here with Chris Jasper. Share with me the new CD, Gold City Records, chrisjasper.com for more information. Ever think about doing a duet LP?
Oh, well.
I'm just full of ideas, folks.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and like I said, it all goes back to the material. What is the song? Because I'll give you an example of something. I heard, again, the guys from England, how they pull out stuff. Mm-hmm. They pull out songs. They pulled out an old Marvin Gaye, Tammy Terrell song that I'd never heard before.
Right.
Right? And it was one of the songs that Motown had just, pushed to the side and left in the catalog. They didn't release it. And I understand why, because it wasn't a strong idea, even though two great singers were singing it. You know what I mean? And so that's what I'm saying. That's why it always goes back to the quality of that original song. That what is the core of that song? That's
sometimes a song, again, I can't think of one offhand, but a song that was written, whether it was written by the artist or by someone that is not a performer, all of a sudden sometimes works, and then sometimes it takes a different take to bring out the inner juices in that song.
Yeah, so, sometimes a different arrangement will do it.
Yeah. All right. We could go on singing forever, as the old song goes. But anyway, we're going to leave you folks with a lovely track. I think we need this track more than ever, called America. It's from the CD Share With Me. Chris Jasper, always a pleasure when you come by, and I can't thank you enough for making this show that much better and being a friend. I appreciate it very much.
Sure, I appreciate you having me.
Absolutely. All right, so share with me the LP, chrisjasper.com for more information. Larry Dasilva, thanking you for joining us here on Studio 411. We're going to leave you with a nice montage along with this song called America from the Share With Me CD. We'll see you next time on Studio 411. Take care.
Little town I'm from, I know it doesn't look like
times, city